Move on to the Capital Endowment Fund applications, and they are, if I could, now this hasn't gone to any committee, so if I just wonder whether staff are somewhat delayed, or if we could get, is it John Fussell who's...
Got Sam's down at the end of the table.
Sorry?
Sam's down at the end of the
table. Oh, sorry, Sam. I'm sorry, I didn't... No. You...
We are a few staff down with various events, especially tomorrow.
I'm
happy to cover things.
Completely understand, but
yeah.
you are more than welcome to be sitting there and to respond to questions, because I think councillors will have some questions about some of these. So sure. If we could just start off with questions, and then I'll perhaps invite someone to move and second it, whatever we get to. So you're happy to move them as they are, and you're happy to second them as they are. So we've got Tim Scandrett and Sarah Templeton. So questions. Tim?
I guess just the Living Springs, although it's in one place, it does a huge amount. It really is what you could call a metropolitan kind of, because it takes anybody from anywhere. So
that's right.
Is that?
Yeah, they had about 22,000 guest nights last year from 12,000 people, and most of them are from Christchurch, and many of them children. Yep.
And a lot of those are through community, as in giving them opportunity.
Schools and sort of community groups such as that. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions?
Just one on the Botanic Delights.
D20.
I'm assuming because the uplighting in the Botanic Gardens will be done by then, that it will take advantage of all of those new features that will be there.
Yeah, I can't speak precisely to those, but they are expanding further into the Botanical Gardens, given the success of the event. So one can assume so. Yeah.
Yanni.
In regards to the pump track, obviously it's a facility. It's got a recreation component to it, and a transitional component. Have we looked at other funding that we have? I'm just mindful that in the past, for example, post-earthquake, there were a number of funding not through the endowment fund for transitional type facilities, and I don't know whether it's just limited to the central city at the moment, or whether that's able to be used to support these sorts of projects in the suburbs. Because clearly this is like a gap filler type transitional project.
Presumably the groups involved in planning this would have used those funds had they been available in budgets, and given that they weren't, this became the option they've applied to.
Right. Also, it would seem to me that this one would be a really good one to get external sponsorship for. I think there's a pump track that's just been put in New Brighton, on New Brighton Road. It'd be good to find out how much that cost, and whether, how anyone might be able to wanting to contribute. But also, are we going to get a report through the community board? I know it's just being sent around to council over the ongoing operational, because it's in this report, but it's not a resolution of council to increase our LTP budget, even though if we fund it, it will.
This is Megan Carpenter, who's project lead from Parks.
Yeah. The endowment fund application included a maintenance cost for 2 years, so that then when the next LTP comes around, future funding can be applied for through that process. In regards to the cost, did you want to know the cost of the one at Burwood, or?
Well, yeah, just that we've got a pump track in Burwood, which isn't too far away. Hopefully, it's getting good use. I know it's in the red zone. Just wondered in terms of whether I think we've got an external sponsorship person now in council that looks to try and get external funding sponsorship. It would seem this might be one that would be good, given I think the one in New Brighton Road was donated, or.
Yeah, I think that came through the Enliven Trust possibly, or Gap Filler, one of those trusts that put that one in there. We actually did receive a quote for the same format of track as the one at Burwood, but decided to go for one slightly different, so that there's a bit of difference between the two spaces. And so in regards to cost, it's slightly less than the quote that is included for this one. But yeah, that is an option, I suppose, is that we look at, there is a sponsorship person in council that can look for funding.
Phil and Aaron.
Thanks for the report. Sam, I just want to ask you, around when there's an application, say, by a community board, and in this case I certainly understand that, and being part of a smaller board myself, it's not the same funding. But did the board chairs have a way of discussing the processes for applications to this Capital Endowment Fund and how they would do it?
The process for Capital Endowment Fund applications has recently changed based on your December 13 decision around, and we've set up a much more formalised process, which involves community board advisors, community groups, and I guess should involve the community chairs as well. These 3 applications were well in the pipeline before that decision, and therefore are going through prior to that. So, does that answer your question?
Partly, but I guess I was really thinking of the governance and the other community boards, and that clearly now other applications could follow from community boards to this fund. Is that what you're expecting?
I expect most will come from community organisations, which community boards will be involved in supporting the preparation for an application to. Christine, any comments as a community board manager? Okay, so.
Okay, thanks.
Sorry, who was next? Aaron, sorry.
Yeah, coming from a board that doesn't have much of its own money to spend, Sam, with this fund, what's the limit for a pump track and the specification limits, do you know, cost-wise and things? Just that we have one that would be not just for kids on bikes, but kids on bikes, scooters, pedestrians, cars, that kind of thing, and it would include some traffic lights and some signalling and so on and so forth.
It's called a major cycleway.
Oh.
It's going
Yeah, I understand that.
It was a rhetorical question. Glenn and then Dion.
Thank you. Just a question on the local demographic. I'm not sure about that, but is there a good...
For the pump track?
Yeah, for the pump track.
I'm not actually exactly certain. Like, we haven't been relying a lot on demographic data because it's 2013 and there's been a lot of changes since that recent data. So hopefully with the new census data coming through soon we'd have better evidence of that. But the local board have suggested that there's a lot of kids in the community around in the Shirley community, so that's where the petition initially came from, children. So yeah.
Did Glenn, Dion? Sorry, I haven't written them down. I've just.
That's all right.
Should be a little bit more focused.
just on the Botanic, the lights.
Mm-hmm.
Is this project all funded by council? Is there any external funding that comes in?
Yeah, there is some external funding. It's increased as the years have gone on because the event has expanded, and last year they received $70,000 in gate donations. Well, that was donated to another cause, but they received $40,000 in sponsorship, which went towards the cost of the event.
And is that sponsorship increasing in the next at the next one, because to offset the cost that we're looking at here?
Presume, yeah, they'll be looking to increase it as the event expands.
Okay, so we're looking to do what, 117, and if there's extra sponsorship, I mean, whatever this extra engaging thing is, I would presume that it would be possible to have sponsors' lights lit up or something like that to offset the cost here. I mean, do you need all of that money for this, or are we able to try and find other external funding to actually do this event?
Well, again, it's an apology from the events team who would have been here and could have answered that more fully. And the notes they've given me, they're definitely seeking that sponsorship, and it'd be similar to the pump track. If income is generated above budget, the remainder could be returned to the Capital Endowment Fund for future applicants.
Okay. Good. All right. So I've got a mover and a seconder. Is there any discussion? Pauline?
Yeah, I'd just like to just support the pump track particularly because this has been a really hard hit area from the earthquakes and have suffered a lot. And this site which was the site of the former Shirley Community Centre, which was demolished as a result of the earthquake, has been sitting there as a construction site for storage of big vehicles and concrete culverts and gravel and all sorts of things for years. And it's been noisy and dusty and messy and horrible. Now it's a green space, but it's vacant, and it'll be wonderful to see this activated. And as Megan alluded to, this was brought to our board's attention by a little fellow, I don't know if he's about 8 or 9 years old, and he had this vision of a pump track, and admittedly he did want it to be on McFarlane Park, but has proved to be unsuitable, mainly because the setbacks are not far enough from any residential, and this site fits the purpose. So we can involve the community in some landscaping and perhaps some fundraising through sausage sizzles for the maintenance, which is only $200 a year. They're keen to be involved, and I'm keen to get them involved in this. So I'm really, it's going to be really neat to see this space be activated. I think it's really important for Shirley. We're not sure of the long-term vision of this site yet, but as this is temporary, I think it's a really good way forward for the community. So happy to support all of these.
Yeah, Glenn and then Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. Simply to say 2 of these applications involve our youth, and I think it's really important that we support them. I've seen a pump track nearby in our area, well used, and good initiative. Something else to do to draw them away from social media too.
Andrew.
Thank you. I'm very supportive of all 3 of these applications, but it would be wrong not for me to make some comment about Living Springs. I'm pleased that we've managed to find a way of funding this particular project. Living Springs is a not-for-profit organisation. We know as a council that the cost of this kind of infrastructure is significant, and also that the public health issues arising from supply of water are also very important. Pleased that we've been able to come to a way of being able to support Living Springs in this. Living Springs are a significant contributor to recreation and education, and in fact are a very active part of our Littleton Harbour and Banks Peninsula, and in fact citywide community through their activities, not least some of the amazing work that they're doing in the environmental and biodiversity and ecology space. So it's great that we're able to support them in this way, and I'd commend that particular application to you.
Yanni.
Yeah, I think, you know, for the pump track, I initially had some concern, but I think, you know, given that this is a site that had a community centre, it doesn't have any transitional use at the moment. Actually, it is good to put something there. And I just quickly wanted to reflect on Reg and Rena in Redcliffs in the old New World site, when I don't know how many people remember, but these were 2 really lovely people in that local community, retired, who built a little scooter park, and it was so popular. People really loved it and appreciated having a transitional use until the new supermarket came along. So I totally see the value of this sort of activity, and I'm really happy to support it.
Great. Aaron?
Yeah, I'd just also like to endorse Andrew's words around Living Springs. That's not just school groups and stuff that go there. There's also other groups, and the one I want to highlight is I've volunteered with them during summer that take in the cancer kids each, and immunocompromised children that are there. So supporting this is really, really important. They do incredible work, and I just have to say that unless you've been there and experienced it, it's really hard to fathom that we have such a gem just over the hill. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Andrew, and I'm really glad to see this here and getting funded this way.
Excellent. Dion?
I'll just ask you put number 2 separately, please. And I'm just going to say one thing, that I won't be supporting number 1. The reason that I'm not supporting it is I have a concern on the precedent that this sets on, and I understand that it's a not-for-profit, but we've got some major issues with our own water supply at the moment, and that, in my mind, may not. Well, I don't find I've got enough information here to make a decision based on that at the moment.
Tim, close the debate.
Thank you. Look, Sam, first of all, thank you, and please pass on our thanks to the staff. I know it's trying times for all, and you kind of came in blind, but well done, and so thank you, and please pass on my thanks to all the staff. First of all, to what Andrew and Aaron said about Living Springs, they do a huge amount of work that is, you know, under the radar, so to speak, and they're not there to get a pat on the back, they're there to do the work, and I think it's absolutely outstanding what they do, right across the board with the stuff they do, and, you know, if we can help them improve and put focus on what they are truly there for, then that is part of why we're here. Number two, item 2, if a community board doesn't know what is a high value and can be a high value for their community, then who are we to kind of say? So I totally support the community board's decision on the pump track. And to have kids doing things, especially now, is absolutely far more important than it ever has been. And to see them, you know, we've got a homemade one around the river, and it's just wonderful to see them. Not too much health and safety, but I actually think it's a good thing sometimes. And number 3, Sam, take on board, please, what was asked with regards to if the events teams can get funding in and reduce that back. That's absolutely fantastic. I'm totally aware that funding and sponsorship at the moment is an absolute dog out there, but if we can and focus on that, because it is a huge plus to those organisations and those future sponsors as well. Yep. So thank you, and I'm really, really pleased to move this. Thank you.
Right, well, I'll put item number 1 separately. So all those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. No. Oh. So that was not a no. I'll put the whole thing then. All those in favour. Oh, number 3. Okay. Right. So. Okay. Well. Oh dear. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll put item 2. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. I'll put item 3. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Dion Swiggs, no.